So in this interview, Patrick, Queally and myself interview Shara Lewis. Shara is a good friend of mine. I've known her for a number of years, and she's over 25 years of real estate industry experience. Shara possesses a unique combination of skills, having worked with owner-operators and contractors, as well as representing owners as an OPM, that's an owner's project manager. We're going to get into the details of that in this video. She also represents lending institutions as a lender's representative. Shara is skilled at coordinating a complex range of real estate development activities on a wide range of topics and types, including new construction, adaptive reuse, historic renovation, modular and regular renovations. In this video in particular, she talks about her current clients, her work with non-profits, multifamilies, and the supply chain issues that she has and that everybody's dealing with regards to COVID-19. Shara has a proven track record in delivering your project on time and within budget, and it was a great pleasure having had the opportunity to speak with her today.
Okay, fantastic. So once again, through the power of social media, we are live again. I'm Patrick Queally, your host for the Wicked Awesome Report, branch manager for Hancock Mortgage Partners, joined by my co-host, Declan O'Toole from Select Real Estate. Good morning, Declan.
Good morning, Patrick. How are you doing?
Doing well. And as you can see, we have a guest with us today. We have Shara Lewis. Good morning, Shara.
Good morning, guys.
Thank you very much for joining us. So anybody that's interested in seeing additional episodes of the Wicked Awesome Report, just head over to that Facebook page, give us a comment, a like, a share. You'll be notified next time we do broadcast live. So again, we are joined by Shara Lewis this morning, and have to thank Declan for the introduction and the invite for Shara to come and join us. So before we started the call, Shara, you were sharing some information about your background and some of the different projects you work on. So you are working on basically project management for construction projects, I guess is the most generic or a wide term to explain what you do. Why don't you get a little bit more technical and give yourself a more fully developed introduction as to what it is you're doing?
Again, thanks for having me. So, owner's project management is what I do. Owners will hire me. There's other people that might also decide to hire me, but owners typically, and that might be an owner of a nonprofit organization, a school, a synagogue, a for-profit organization. So current projects right now are venture capital. I have a venture capital firm and a nonprofit, both building out offices. So they would hire me at any stage of the project, but ideally at the beginning, to help them assemble a team of an architect, a contractor, and all the other vendors that an owner needs to hire, and help them manage the project through the design phase, into construction, and then including sometimes even moving them in. So it can be anything from soup to nuts. And sometimes it's just a limited engagement to help a client with a budget or a schedule, because those are sort of, we talked about earlier, the two most important things to get set up properly at the beginning of a project, even before you get going with design, so that you understand, or early on in design, so that you understand the time and money that is going to be involved with your project. So. Sure. Yeah.
So, so it sounds like really just from the idea of a construction project all the way through to when the tenants or the occupant moves in, you can help manage it just every step of the way.
Right. So I think a common misconception is that I'm not the architect, I'm not the engineer, and I'm not making decisions for the owner. But what I do is help facilitate and organize the team in a way that that the owner can quickly and easily make those decisions. Well, I say quickly, but without much delay, I should say.
Sure.
And that the owner, depending on the organization, that a proper process, if that's what they want, we've gone through proper process to make a selection. So I can't, for each team member. So it could be based on money, it could be other things. But I mean, for example, a lot of organizations, they might just start working with an architect early on because it's somebody's brother, or it's they did worked on their house and they like them. But that might not be the right fit for the organization, or depending on the structure of the organization, if there's a board of trustees or a board of advisors, you want to be able to show that you might want to be able to show that you had a process that you went through and that you selected somebody because of their qualifications or their price or their experience with the specific project that you have in mind. So, and that's true also for the contractor, and becomes true for, in some cases, for some of the other teams. Now, not everybody needs a process, or not everybody needs a documented process, but helping also making sure that the contract is protecting the owner. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I can I can advise them on a lawyer if they need that, who specializes in construction contracts or architect contracts. But I have a lot of experience to be able to say, oh, this is something you might want to look more closely at, or let's think about how are we going to have liquidated damages or not, or whatever the issue is. I think I got a little off track.
No, that's okay. So you're really, I mean, I guess in the most basic sort of layman's terms here is you're just the point person. You're the one that the owner is looking to manage and organize the entire project. So you must have a long list of different vendors, whether there be different construction, trades, or like you said, architects, different people that you've worked with in the past that you've vetted out that have successfully been able to help you complete projects. And I think in today's world, having those relationships and those connections are really vital to having a successful project with so many different people.
I'd interject though. I'd say more than just a point person. As you said, I think you probably need to know a little bit about architecture, you need a little bit about law. You need to have a master of all trades, but then you certainly get to know a lot of the trades, but you actually get to, your job is knowing enough to get the right people and understand where they're getting it right and getting it wrong as well. I imagine you're setting the course or redirecting the course a lot of the time.
And also being able to think ahead as to anticipating, well, what else will come up? So not just answering the question that's at hand, but saying, okay, well, then if we do this, then how is that going to, what are the other implications? Or we made this decision, does that also apply to all these other aspects of does this apply to every room or just to this one room we're discussing? But to your point, Declan, it's a really good point. And maybe that's a good way for me to talk a little bit about how I got into this and what my background is.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I studied civil engineering in college. That's what my degree is. But I also minored in architecture because I'm a glutton for punishment. So that's what my degree is, in structural engineering with a architecture focus. So I did studio architecture courses. I studied abroad in London for architecture. But then when I came out and went to work, I worked first for a civil engineer doing large, like bridge renovation projects. And then I worked for a developer for 4 years in New York. So they had their own property manager, and they did their own renovations, and it was a lot of historic renovation. I did that for 4 years. Then I went and worked in New York City for a large contractor building luxury. It was retail at the time. And then I was the head of construction for a domestic violence organization building affordable housing and housing for domestic violence victims. So, for survivors rather. And so having been on the owner's side, the contractor's side, the engineer's side, I sort of can see it from all sides. But in my role as an owner's project management, which I just can't even tell you how much I love this work. People say, like, a lot of times my client are like, I don't even know how you do this work or how you like this. But I love it because I'm representing the owner, and that's always very clear to me. I'm not representing the contractor or the architect. I'm representing the owner, and the owner's best interests are always what I'm keeping at, right at the forefront. So while I always try to have a collaborative team and have good communication with all and make sure that the contractor gets paid on time, that everybody's bills get paid on time and everybody's fairly compensated, the owner is who I account to. So, but having that experience of having seen it from all different angles is so valuable. I didn't just kind of go and that's why I say there's a lot of organizations, a lot of firms now that are saying they do owner's project management, but I'm not, and I'm sure a lot of people do a really good job, but when clients hire me, they get me, I'm not coming at it only from an architect's point of view or only from a contractor's point of view. I'm sort of taking all of that into account, including, like Declan, you do property management, including, well, how is this going to make, yes, it looks gorgeous, but how is it going to hold up over time? Are you actually going to be able to maintain and clean it in the way that it's supposed to, or is it going to be a nightmare and maybe we do something different? So I try to bring all those experiences to bear in helping the client.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So hiring, you don't just get sort of the title as the OPM. You're getting all of the background and years of experience that comes along with bringing you to this point. That's fantastic. I did
also want to say, while I do have a lot of contacts and I do have so many years in Boston. I mean, I'm from the Boston area originally, lived in New York for many years, but have been back here for 22 years working. So while I do have that kind of people I've worked with before, it's not like I only feed business to those certain contractors, those certain architects, or it's sometimes an owner will say, well, we really want this person we want to look at this vendor. And so I'm always looking to build that and expand that and build a good working relationship with new, whether it's an up and coming design firm or a smaller, startup AV firm that spun off from a larger AV firm. So each project has its own different needs, and each client has a certain level of sophistication or complexity that they want in their team. And sometimes they just want it simple and they want the two-man shop to do their IT, and that's what they want. They don't need the big, multi-office firm, for example.
Sure. Quick question: Do you come in? Are you always there at the start of a project from concept, or do you come in at different stages?
So it can be at any stage. I always like it when I'm there from beginning to end. That's the most fun. I feel like that's where you can add the most value. But I've had it go every different way. So it could be that somebody just has me do a small limited engagement. Maybe sometimes it's only, all right, we're hiring you for $3,000 worth of hours for, help us on our feasibility study. And then often then we write it up so that they can add time if they need to. They can add time or hours or whatever. So sometimes it's a limited engagement. Sometimes it's just getting a team assembled or getting them through permitting. I do a lot of permitting work with Concom, Historic, help putting packages together because I'm super detail oriented. I never feel like a town, somebody from the city or the town is going to have to look in your plans to find that you responded to. It's like, no, here, you asked this question, the answer is on page A.1.2, detail 5. And, I try to make it as easy for every member of the team to kind of make decisions. But, it could be at any stage, but I love it when it's, all the way through to the end. I love it because I feel like when an owner can move in and feel like, God, everything was taken care of, that just feels so good. Whereas just getting them to construction and then having them manage the construction with their architect and contractor. I mean, most architects are not, their contracts aren't written in a way that allows them to provide the level of detail and the support that I provide. So, I just fielded, before this call this morning at 9:30, I just fielded about 7 emails, with details of, the signage mounting height. We're putting the signs up and the vendor's there and they changed the height on this one. Should I change the height on that one? So being able to go quickly to the right person so somebody's not standing around waiting to do work. I mean, that is minutia. I usually field big stuff, but to the end, it comes down to the minutia, and the small things are what the owner's going to see and look at and touch every day.
Yep.
Well, nobody's touching anything these days. But, taking it down to the end so that an owner really feels like they were really taken care of. They didn't have to worry that even though maybe there were budget increases or maybe the schedule got extended, but they still had a positive experience. That's what I'm looking to deliver.
I'd imagine that minutia, though, is what saves you on both time and, as you're talking about budget increases, et cetera. I've seen that. I'm not that involved with development, but that's the one thing you hear is people go overtime, and it's because or the electrician's waiting for the plumber or vice versa. There's always something going on, so you kind of manage across the streams, I'd imagine, from that perspective.
Right, and of course, when it gets to construction details, that's really up to the contractor, but you ask any contractor that I worked with, they'll say, oh yeah, we had a weekly meeting and she had a list for us of, oh, so how are you handling this? And after you get that installed, did they also order the glass shelves that go in the frames? Because I don't want to be waiting on those. I don't want to be sitting around with empty, So kind of asking all the questions that are on my mind and, often apologizing to them saying, sorry, but here's what it was.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, thank you. This is helpful.
Well, I suppose that, the age-old saying, if you don't make time to do it right up front, you better make time to fix it later. So,
right.
putting the right plan together up front.
I'm not looking to, this comes definitely from years of experience. I'm not ever looking to catch somebody doing wrong. I'm looking to make it so that they don't have to miss something.
Yep.
So, if sometimes there's a younger or less experienced super on a job, or somebody who feel like, okay, is he thinking this through? Or sometimes even an old timer who knows everything and but he's got so much going on and there's new technology or something that hasn't been thought of. Like, I don't pretend to have the answers to anything, but I hope I can just add.
Well, yeah, catch the mistakes before they happen and make sure that everything stays on course. Yeah,
well, I would say
save everybody time and money. Anticipate.
Trying to anticipate, and that each project you learn something new, and then you never make that mistake again.
Mm-hmm.
But every project has something new. It's just always, and that's what keeps it interesting.
Yeah.
Is there's new materials, there's new technology.
Yeah.
There's, or maybe a project that just has a design feature, new lighting, new HVAC, but also sometimes just a design feature that you're like, wow, I've never worked with this before, and I don't even know, so I have to learn something new, but it always builds on what I already have done or what I've already worked with before.
Sure. You now you did mention you serve kind of a group of or different groups of types of clients. So what? At the end of the day, when someone's looking at a project, what does that look like? You had mentioned synagogue, you had mentioned some retail stores. Talk more about a little bit, please, about what what are the projects that you're working on? What kind of development is it?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So for the current projects that I have two that are neck and neck to wrap up in the next week or so, and they're partially moved in, but they're not occupying their space yet. Both of them happen to be tenant fit-out work. One is a full floor of 25,000 square feet for a venture capital firm in Providence, and they've been in their old space for 20 years, and now they're looking for the space for the next 20 years, and that's just a gorgeous project with lots of custom details, beautiful furniture, and they really brought, so I managed the furniture. I found them an art vendor to help them choose art for the walls, and that's getting managed. They have a plant vendor, so that's, and then of course AV, IT, all that other stuff too. But that's one example. And then at the same time, I'm working on a 6,000 square foot portion of a building in Roxbury, a new building, mid-level building. The other one's a high-rise, and that's a build tenant fit-out work as well for nonprofit. It's their new. They've been in Somerville for 30 years, and they've been on like 3 different floors. Each time they expanded, they took the Warren rooms on another floor, and now they're going to have this beautiful one floor or portion of a floor office with really some great design features, but really cost-effective design features, like not spending money, using paint or using a custom wall covering or things that give some punch without a lot of cost. So, and a lot of, that's sort of the two, actually that is right there, the two ends of the spectrum. Sure. The nonprofit with a really tight, low budget, they came in $100,000 under budget on a $2 million budget. So they, we came, the whole project with all in, they did really well. So they were able to add some things at the end that we had to take out because we weren't sure, where we would land or what would happen with coronavirus. Didn't know if the schedule would get extended, but fortunately with both projects, we were permitted before the virus, before the pandemic. So we lost a little bit of time, but not a lot. But yeah, I know you were thinking of talking. You mentioned talking about that. I mean, that is a challenge for all of us right now, right? Because I mean, it goes down to from the large scale of, are people going to be building offices?
Yeah. So
are people going to be occupying offices, or are offices going to become residential, or what's going to happen there? I mean, I've done a lot of residential work, and I'll continue to do that. It just happened that both of these were commercial. But also, the pandemic has affected other things. I wasn't seeing supply chain issues early on, but now I'm, certain things like I'm waiting on a fridge, and they're like, yeah, stainless steel fridges, 6 months in North America.
Wow.
It's like,
Wow.
I ordered it ages ago, but, so these,
Pressure treated wood. I think there's the instructions. There's a lot of different, even just the basics.
Yeah.
Supply.
yeah, a
And
lot
I
of the
think
contractors I've
it's like
talked
some of
to.
it's becoming more evident now, because maybe there was stock of certain things, and then we were finding nobody was stocking anything. Like they weren't stocking anything; everything had to be ordered. But I think it's like now we're kind of run out of whatever it is. And
Exactly, yeah. A lot of the contractors I've been speaking with are running into the same issues. The shelves aren't necessarily bare, but there's, the warehouses are just about empty, and those, like Declan, you mentioned pressure-treated wood. It's difficult to find. Appliances, the warehouses are now pretty much empty, and you've got a long wait time after you put that order in. Yeah, so the supply chains certainly are under stress right now.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that to address that going forward, ordering early, and then also having the contractor going forward giving me a procurement, not just saying, oh, the submittal was approved, but going through, okay, procurement log, like what have you actually paid for and bought, and have you gotten a report that the order was placed? Because it's like one thing if they order it from somebody, but then that person has to order it. So, without trying to micromanage, but also asking the questions so that somebody's like, oh, she's going to ask me, so I better check and make sure.
Well, I mean, it's literally your job to make sure it stays on track. So, yeah, for sure.
Right.
For sure.
So,
Now,
and you miss the interest. So one of the things about this work is I will catch whatever. I'll catch things before there are anything to catch, but I'll catch 10,000 things, and then there'll always be whatever, a dozen or 3 that you don't catch, or that you thought you caught, but then it dribbled through, or and it's always I don't want to bog a client down with here's all the things I did for you, but also making sure that everybody knows there are going to be mistakes. You could, but everybody, and this is less so, but early on in the pandemic when we weren't doing site visits, or contractors were like supposed to be, if they were working on a job site, you could only have X number of people per 1,000 square feet of work area. So people weren't working nearby. The super was walking, but at a distance. That did have an effect too. And, but also positive effects of being able to work on Zoom and collaborate, and people getting used to this idea that we can do so much by social media, by Zoom, and by collaborating virtually. But it's never a full replacement for being on a job site and walking through and looking at it.
Of course.
And even with 3 people walking through and looking at something, you can still all look at the same thing, and then not until, then you're like, maybe 2 weeks later, wait, that wasn't,
Yeah. Well, with the supply chain issues, are you seeing that you're extending some of the timelines for what you're expecting on when things will be completed?
Yeah, so I mean, I have a project that's finishing up, and the shades for some, I don't know, the Mecco shades are delayed until November, Thanksgiving. And hopefully they will actually show up then. We looked at other options, we looked at other things that were deliverable, but it wasn't the color and the same exact quality. So we just decided in that case to stay with that. But you're going to be damn sure that I or somebody from the contractor is going to be in the warehouse when they deliver, before they ship to the site, before we schedule it. We've opened the boxes and matched it with the sample to make sure it's exactly what they ordered, so it doesn't show up on site, and I don't tell the client, don't come into work on this Friday because we're working on your shades, or we're going to do it at night, and, you know, trying to make sure that at least they're disrupted as little as possible. But, you know, and then in the case of a refrigerator that's delayed, I'm not going to leave them without a fridge, so I'm going to procure for them a fridge. It may not be the exact same beautiful commercial quality fridge that they're waiting on, but they're going to have a fridge. And, you know, the kitchen's going to look finished, even though the fridge might not be the model until the other one comes in. And then making sure that somebody's actually following up, me or somebody on my team is following up to make sure that, you know, okay, you said the fridge was due, you know, this week.
Yeah.
What's up?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, the pandemic certainly has changed and caused disruption for everybody. And it's, you know, just figuring out ways to get through. And even if it's just a temporary short-term fix until you get the right piece, the right equipment, exactly what was ordered, you know, got to do what you have to do to, you know, keep the clients happy.
Yeah, and the permitting has been a big issue, not on any of my projects, just because of the timing. We applied super early for permits for other reasons that turned out to be very valid. Like in one case, we got a permit from the city of Boston, like February 28th, which was, had we, you know, I think it's caught up now, but so many of the building departments are working on partial staff or remote, or, you know, it took them a while to figure out what to do, but I know for a while Cambridge wasn't even issuing permits, so even if you had applied, you were just stuck waiting.
I've heard stories of, you know, contractors waiting and just you know, near impossible to get those permits. Now, Shara, you'd mentioned a couple of different locations. Where are the projects that you work on, just geographically? What areas do you serve?
Anywhere. I mean, I've done projects. I collaborate with others. So I mean, I have a group of projects I'm looking at in Florida, and I have a team down there, not my employees, but that I would collaborate with for there. But typically, my projects are Boston to Providence, Worcester. You know, I've done something in Hartford, and I have somebody that I collaborate with there. So, you know, depending, it's sort of that, I don't know, bigger than 495, but, you know, 495. And as long as it depends on the nature of the project as well. So sometimes it's far away, but somebody wants help with budget and schedule, and then wants help with assembling a team. Super easy to do remotely, and then you drive up for whatever, every week or every other week if that's what's needed. So really depends on the project and the duration of the project.
All right. Cool.
In terms of people finding you too, I suppose from the perspective of you come in at different stages. Do you find that lenders put people in touch with you if they find that they're falling behind, or what sort of is what's a typical somebody's coming to you? What angle are they normally coming from?
Right. So sometimes it's from contractors, sometimes it's from architects. I've had contractors who saying, I'm the early stages looking with an architect at this project, and we've said they could use your help. So sometimes it comes from there. And then owners, I don't have a lot of, like, schools are a good repeat business. Private schools, you know, tend to do a building or another renovation. So that's like a good kind of ongoing source. Banks, lenders are a good resource. I also do bank inspections, so sometimes the owner is the lender, right? So the lender's lending to a commercial loan and wants somebody to report monthly, do an initial review of the plans, make comments, and then report monthly on the draws before you approve the draws. So I do that work as well. I'm always looking for new lenders to work for, because that's kind of steady once a month work that is easy to slot in and schedule, but, it isn't really scheduled, but schedule it in among the other things. And those are good repeat clients. So definitely lenders. But really, any project I don't do single family homes. I suppose if somebody had a really cool, detailed, complex personal home, or it was a historic renovation or something, maybe I would consider it. But typically owners of single family homes aren't looking for that kind of thing. So multifamily or institutional. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. And we'll make sure that we connect and get all of the right details for people to contact you. But and we'll get that posted as part of the video. But just quickly, what would be the best way for someone to reach out to you, Shara?
Basically, through email, it's pretty easy. Shara, S-H-A-R-A, at Shara Lewis, SHARALEWIS.com.
Okay.
I've got a website, and my phone number is on the website. And
Okay.
yeah, looking forward to talking to anybody with a project.
All right. Well, we'll make sure we get all those details posted with the video. So, to wrap up, one last question. So, someone is thinking about, a construction project. They have a concept in mind. Okay. What is one piece of advice that you would give that individual? Obviously contact you to help with it, but other than contacting you, what's the best piece of advice you could give somebody that is contemplating a large-scale construction project that maybe has not done one? Absolutely, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So number one, I wouldn't rely, if you're doing a budget, first of all, it has to include everything, all your soft costs, your architect's fees. If you need new utilities, I also do that. So if you need new utilities, whatever the procurement and setup fees for your new utilities, and bringing gas in from the street, bringing whatever, new meter. So making sure that the budget has everything, and having a set of eyes look at it and say, oh, have you thought of this and this and this? Making sure that's there, and that's number one. But also making sure that you're carrying enough contingency, and that's both design contingency and construction contingency. And I would say 10 and 10%. I know it sounds like a lot, but when you're first starting out, 10 and 10 for a total of 20, 10% design contingency and 10% construction contingency is not a bad idea. You can hone it down as you move closer to the completion of design, or if you're building new construction, if you're getting the foundation in the ground. Once the foundation's in the ground and you pass permitting, and with that, then maybe you can release a little bit, make that a little smaller. The third thing I'd say, so what did I say? I said
say budget, contingency, yep.
Now I can't remember the third thing. But
call Shara.
You call me and I'll tell you what the third thing is.
Well, you can't get any more than a big market tease than that. So that is absolutely great advice. So maybe we should wrap it up there, and we save the best piece of advice for last. Call Shara. Fantastic. So, Shara, you've been a fantastic guest. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Great having you on. Hopefully we can have you on again at some point in the future, hear about some other projects and developments that you're working on, and thank Declan for the introduction and inviting you to join us this morning. And we'll make sure we get all the details on how to contact you posted as part of the video here. So let's wrap up. This has been another edition of the Wicked Awesome Report. I'm Patrick Queally, your friend in the mortgage business and host here at the Wicked Awesome Report, joined by my co-host in the car there, Declan O'Toole from Select Real Estate. Thanks for joining us from the road this morning, Declan.
Thanks, Patrick.
So we'll wrap it up. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Head over to Wicked Awesome Report Facebook page. Give us a comment, a like, a thumbs up, and you'll be notified next time we go live. So until the next edition, hope everybody out there stays well and stays awesome. Take care.